All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Welcome to Chicago Junction, the radio program that is all about the amazing world of railroading and the many facets of the industry and model railroading. I am your announcer, Brian Valou, and here is our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Chief Electrical Engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Thursday, November the 10th, the year 2016. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now, to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Thank you, John. Now, our chief dispatcher, who normally keeps control of the chaos here, is not here, and he's home in bed, and we hope he's feeling well. Okay, John, or Jack, you got it. Now, we'll take over and start with introducing our panel. We got quite a group tonight, so we should have a very fine discussion.
I always thought John was the source of the chaos on this show.
Well, we got to make him sort of feel good. But anyway, starting on my left, we have Mr. Dave DeRuska.
Another person who excels in chaos. Yeah, hi, Dave DeRuska here.
Well, introduce yourself to our crowd. You know how it is.
Yeah, I know. It goes retired locomotive engineer whose last trip was on Metra. Also worked for the Illinois Central, the Wisconsin Central, and the Chicago Northwestern. Currently a member of this august panel, as well as a blogger with Chicago Railroad History blog called Player with Railroads, and the program director for the Blackhawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society.
Hi, I'm Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant, lifelong collector and operator of Lionel trains. I'm a director with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and I also work with the Boy Scouts.
Hello, I'm John Picciotto. Should I give my entire resume?
Why not?
Okay, I've played with trains since I was about 16 years old. Former officer for various clubs, in model railroad clubs. Past board member of the Chicago chapter of the NRHS with Mr. Bryan. Run many excursion trains. Former member of the diesel department of the Illinois Railway Museum, and currently am working at Lombard Hobbies, running the website and doing sales and service and shipping and receiving, basically whatever my boss needs.
I'm Ron Stock. I'm a retired library director at Eisenhower Library. My fascination has been with trains from my parents that took me a number of years ago on various steam train excursions before they became sort of extinct. And I continue with my hobby. I do travel on Amtrak a lot, usually once or a couple of times a year. So, and I read a lot of train magazines and try to keep up with the hobby by visiting various hobby shops.
Hi, this is Doug Kenyuk. I'm with the Railroad Short Lines Club of Chicago. Longtime rail fan, historian, N-scaler, and a professor over at Wright College. The website's dhke.com.
Wow, now we've got a good round. I am Brian Valou. I am also a retired Navy sailor and railroader. I was engineer and conductor for Chicago Northwestern and Metro. I play with my Lionel and also the large-scale trains for indoor and outdoor railroading. Historian with the NRHS, Reading Company Historical and Technical Society, and just a lot of other things.
Man about town.
That's it, man about town. We got a boomer.
Boomer, right. Yeah, boomer in Chicago.
Yeah,
Boomed around the railroads in Chicago.
yeah, I got a friend. I was thinking of one guy like that. A friend of mine. Could be considered a boomer. He started with the Northwestern with me. Then he went to UP, went to their dispatcher's office, came back, played conductor, went to the BNSF, and now he's at the Belt Railway in their yard.
Oh, Harold.
Yep.
Belt Railway of Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah, Harold's.
Harold he's a hoot.
Oh, he's a blast, and
Yes, he is. He's very good.
nowadays he says the worst thing is when he stands in the tower, he can look out and wave at the airplanes as they land at Midway Airport.
We have to get him on here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just took a train trip on Amtrak. Lakeshore Limited, coach. Oh my God.
Ooh.
How was the food?
What, me from the cafe car?
Yeah.
I had breakfast on the way back. My mom was waiting for me when I got to Buffalo, so she took me out to breakfast. But cafe car was interesting. There were 3 young Amish men sitting there on their cell phones, cussing and swearing at each other. Things have changed in the Amish world, I guess. Got to Cleveland on the trip to Buffalo. We got to Cleveland, and a woman in the seat across from me who had been alternately sleeping and talking on her cell phone woke up when we got to Cleveland and screamed at the top of her lungs, "Where the hell are we?" Had to gently remind her that we weren't in Buffalo yet. We were in Cleveland. Are we Buffalo yet?
My daughter just went down to St. Louis Friday to visit with her sister and her goddaughter and her nephew, and she said the trip down was nice, but there was a grumpy conductor on the trip back on Sunday. She said he wasn't a nice man. So I know it wasn't Brian. Dave maybe, but not Brian.
No, I never worked as a passenger conductor. No. The only things I conducted were boxcars.
She was downtown Friday, and she said she felt like a salmon. She was trying to get into Union Station to get a train, and she said there was thousands and thousands of people coming out for the Cubs rally.
Oh, God.
Oh, jeez. Could imagine
That's
what it
worse.
was like
That's
at
worse.
Randolph Street. Oh, God.
That's got to be worse than the 3rd of July.
Yeah.
It was. From my sources, it was pack him into the train, load and go.
Yeah, right.
They were still running full trains at 10, 11 o'clock on Friday night.
I'll bet. And those are the drunks that stay downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the fun trains.
Yeah, right.
Usually in Elmhurst, you see a 10-car train come out with the last 2 cars lit. No. Whole thing was lit, and there were people in every car.
Well, I'll tell you what, those new bi-levels they got now make it a little bit more easier for the engineers. When the other ones where the cab doors open, those people
God.
like coming through, and all of a sudden you get sloshing at your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember one time I heard some noise outside the cab, 3rd of July, and I opened up the door, and there was one of the garbage cans just sitting there. It picked it up and brought it to the end vestibule and just set it down. Oh, man. Fun times on Metro.
Oh, definitely.
Hey, want to talk about some railroad stuff?
Yeah, we can do that. You know, I was going to say, I was sitting at a crossing at Tui.
Did you see a train?
Yes, I did. That's why I was sitting at the crossing.
Ah.
It was a southbound Hiawatha, and saw the cabbage car that's painted for American veterans. They now have a cabbage car in it. Amtrak's pretty cool with that.
Let's talk about Governor Rauner, or Rauner as some people call him. His budget would cut $16 million from Amtrak funding. His proposal would roll back the state's current $42 million Amtrak subsidy back to 2013 levels and cause some reduction in the number of trains running, which would probably, the proposed Bloomington line is probably going to take a hit on that, even though they agreed to go ahead with that. And that's what Bloomington, Chicago Quad Cities project remains in planning and relies partially on federal funding for construction of a link between the areas. And also on that same note, the CTA would be affected by budget cuts. And I think it would probably be across the board for any agency that falls under the guidance of RTA. They're going to, Governor Rauner this week proposed trimming $128 million from the Regional Transportation Authority, which funds Metra, CTA, and PACE. Budget cuts would hit the Chicago Transit Authority under the budget plan and would have a significant negative impact on the agency. The cuts risk reversing the impressive improvements the CTA has made in the last 4 years. So that's what's going on in the world of Illinois politics with trains.
Doug, any good news?
Yeah, I got some interesting stuff here. The Grand Elk Railroad was temporarily kicked off of 3.3 miles of track up in Grand Rapids by the CSX because CSX decided that they got too much business. So they went to the STB, and the STB just ruled in their favor. So their long-term lease was restored. Yeah.
They had too much business?
Yep. CSX wanted the business, and of course, once CSX started switching them, slapped them with a $1,000 surcharge to all the businesses on the line.
Okay.
Yeah. Dwight opened a new rail station,
Yeah.
and the old one is now owned by the city and being restored. We were down there, a couple of weeks ago, looking at it before it was open. They had the opening ceremonies a week ago, I believe. Nice station. Looks like one of those cookie cutters. You know, it's got the triangle and nice brick and.
Yeah, I thought the brick was impressive. I like the brick. It's like
Yeah.
a Roman brick, that long,
Yeah,
thin
it's
brick.
similar to the station that Metra has at Belmont Avenue on the North Central line.
Okay.
And just though, what doesn't look nice is the rest of the cement that's all over the place, because they just, nice wide platforms. Got to be long, of course, but a lot of cement there. And supposedly now they're rebuilding new stations in Pontiac, Normal, Carlinville, and Alton are next, and Springfield and Lincoln will be just updated.
And that's the St. Louis line, right?
Right, that's for the high-speed, alleged high-speed line.
I knew somebody who went to the opening for that station, and he complained that there were no donuts.
That's a legitimate complaint.
It is. I would
Yes,
say
yeah.
so, yes.
Yes. BNSF named Burlington Junction short line of the year. Now, what's nice is that Burlington Junction does all the switching for BNSF down in Montgomery, Illinois here. And last time we talked, they were getting that new sugar facility, so that's going to be switched by these guys. They have a nice relationship with BNSF. A lot of their operations are spin-offs from Burlington Junction, switches a lot of stuff toward Burlington, Northern Santa Fe. Here's one that's interesting. Washington, the state of Washington, suing the BNSF for spilling coal, for letting coal fall off the hopper cars into a river.
Yep.
And I didn't notice, but they supposedly spray the top of the hopper cars now with something that seals them so that the dust doesn't come off. There's a new respray facility in Washington, so when the trains come in, the tops are resprayed again with this surfactant and glue to keep the stuff. But somebody got a video of a lump of coal falling into the river, and now they're being sued for water pollution.
Not in my
True
backyard.
story.
No.
Absolutely true story. And then, meantime, Washington is considering giving a permit to build a transload facility on the Pacific Ocean to ship coal to Asia. But they're trying to stop coal trains from coming into the state. Go figure. And finally, state of Indiana has decided to hold public hearings for all the transportation in their state, not just the in South Shore. So you can go on, they have a website available that people could put their opinion in, and they're going around having public hearings on their freight and passenger service throughout the state.
Yeah, because I saw the one for Valparaiso.
Yeah.
That may be our caller.
Oh, he's answering the phone.
It's 7:15.
So anyway, that's basically it for this time around.
You're gonna host this.
Yeah, okay.
The CTA released the footprint, the diagram for the footprint for the extension out to 130th Street. It appears that it will curve south from the Dan Ryan, follow 57, hook up to the Union Pacific tracks at Stewart Avenue, go down Stewart to 115th Street, angle southeast, and hook up to the north-south line at King Drive out to 130th Street.
I believe we have a caller online. Can you speak up and identify yourself, please?
This is Cynthia Ogoric.
Hello, Cynthia. It's Dave DeRusca.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. I have a copy of your Images of Rail, Chicago and Western Indiana Railroad, that you co-authored with Bill Maloney.
Yes, sir.
And I asked you to give us a call in and talk to us about it.
Be happy to.
So tell us a little bit about the genesis of this project. How did this all come about?
Well, I was selling my other book, the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Railroad book at one of Bill Maloney's Black Hawk chapter swap meets out in Griffith. And he came up to me and he handed me an envelope. He says, I've got the photos. Let's do a book on the Chicago and Western Indiana. And I said, what? And from there we talked about it and put together a proposal to Arcadia, and they decided to get on board, and the rest is a book.
Can you give us a little bit of background on Arcadia, because some people may not be familiar with them as a publisher?
Well, Arcadia does very local histories. Usually they are about a town, a specific town, and it's all pictures. It's you need to do one of these books. You need probably around 250 photographs, and they want them to be vintage photos. You can't just go out and take pictures of local buildings or trains or whatever. It has to be things that were done like 100 years ago, some in that vicinity. And they have a format. You are allowed so many words per caption, and you have so many words to write introductions with. And from there, you're on your own. You can be as creative as you like in how you put the chapters together and what you want to talk about, what you want to write about, and possibly what you want to highlight about your subject. And it's all in black and white.
Right. So tell us a little bit about the CNWI.
Well, it turns out it was regionally, it was a very important railroad. It allowed 5 owner railroads to make their way into Chicago for a lot less money than they were spending to lease track rights from other trunk lines. So let's see if I can remember them now. The 5 owners were the C&EI, the Grand Trunk, the Erie, the Monon, and the Wabash. And the Wabash, the Erie, and the Monon met the C&WI at the Indiana-Illinois state border. And they went through South Chicago, Hegewisch, and South Chicago, and on to downtown Chicago at the Dearborn Station. Grand Trunk crossed into Illinois several miles south of there. It went through at a point somewhere between Thornton and South Holland, Illinois, and then came around from the west and met the same track lines going north. The C&EI, as your listeners probably know, was coming from southern Indiana and Illinois, and they actually were the company that came up with the idea of putting together their own railroad to gain this access to Chicago. About in the 1870s, they went as far as Dalton, Illinois. That was their terminal. And when they put in the rest of the 16 or 17 miles into the Chicago Loop, they constructed the C&WI. The terminal of this railroad was at Dearborn Station, which is possibly the only little, with the exception of the big bridge on Torrance Avenue, that's probably the only remains of the C&WI at this point. And whereas you can't crawl around on the bridge anymore, you can go to the Dearborn Station in downtown Chicago and get some feeling of what it was like. Wow, that's like 40 years ago when it was in its heyday.
And the Santa Fe also used the
yes, it did.
Dearborn.
Santa Fe was a tenant line. Chesapeake and Ohio was the other tenant, but the Santa Fe had something like a 99-year lease, which was probably up just yesterday. But it's long gone as well. The passenger service, and it doesn't come out of Dearborn Station anymore. Everything was moved over to Union Station when Amtrak took over in 1971. And it took working on this project with Bill to realize that I had ridden one of the last of those Santa Fe trains out west. I went as far as Albuquerque twice on that train just before it was turned over to Amtrak. So it was Santa Fe. I tease Bill. That was the sexy railroad that came into Dearborn Station, because all the big movie stars and businessmen and the producers and directors, these people crossed the country in those days by train, and they all had to come into Dearborn Station from L.A., and then they transferred there around the loop and went to the other station wherever they needed the other train, like the New York Central or something like that.
Right, the Chicago Daily News archives that I believe are held at the in Washington, the Library of Congress. They have quite a few photos taken by their photographers of celebrities coming into town.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the CWI also had a commuter line, or a commuter operation.
Yes, that wasn't really a big deal. It went as far as, I think it was Dalton and possibly into South Holland. And it ended in the 1960s because people just weren't riding the train anymore, and it wasn't really an efficient line. They were really making their money with the switching of the freight trains and the switching of the passenger cars, and then shunting the freight into the different mills and factories along the southeast side. I think that's where their big money was coming from.
Anything else? Could you talk a little bit about your South Shore book, too? I think people might be interested in that.
Oh, yeah. I had a good time with that one. The front end of the book is company history, and talk about the ups and downs of passenger service in the 20th century and the beginnings of the South Shore in East Chicago, Indiana. And then the back half of the book I put together so that people could use it as a guidebook. If they get on the train at Millennium Station in Chicago, they can kind of follow along and see and understand the corridor that they're traveling through, because it's very historic. In fact, between, say, 124th Street, just south of Pullman, and 12th Street, was the route of the Lincoln funeral train. Lincoln's body came in on the Michigan Central, which was leasing track rights from the Illinois Central. And his casket was taken off the train at about 11th Street for the funeral procession in Chicago. So that's part of it. I mean, Stephen Douglas owned a lot of the property that the train runs on, and then you get out into Indiana, and you go through the dunes, and Lake Calumet Harbor. So it was quite the route is there because there was business there, particularly freight. Sam Insel was keen on getting as much business for his train as he could, or his railroad rather, and so he was willing to put in spurs and tracks to all the factories and stuff. He was even offering incentives, like I think it was like $25,000 if you will build your factory along our railroad line, so that we can service it. So the Calumet region was really developed by Sam Insel and other entrepreneurs like him, and that's where the South Shore came in handy.
So I have a list of upcoming events that you will be signing the book at. Saturday, November 26th and Sunday, November 27th, the third annual Thanksgiving Weekend Model Train Show and Swap Meet held at the Lake County Fairgrounds at 889 South Court Street, Crown Point, Indiana. General admission, $5 under 18 free, and Saturday from 9:30 until 4. Sunday 10 until 3. Then on Friday, December 2nd, 4 to 7, you'll be signing at the Miles Bookstore, 2819 Jewett in Highland, Indiana. And you'll have that book as well as some of your other books. And then on Saturday, December the 3rd, between noon and 4 p.m., which is something I want to attend, a book signing at the Southeast Chicago Historical Society Museum in Calumet Park, Chicago Fieldhouse, 9801 South Avenue G. And this event is held in conjunction with the 70th anniversary open house held by the Lakeshore Model Railroad Association, which houses their layout in the lower level of the field house. And society volunteers have also worked industriously all summer and fall to rearrange the space and highlight previously hidden artifacts and documents that tell the history of Chicago's southeast side.
Right, and I have to also put in a plug and a big thank you to the volunteers at that museum, because they have assisted me on every one of my books except the Lincoln Highway book. But the Calumet River, the South Shore, and the CNWI all had information there that they were able to get out for me and help me with the book. So I owe them a lot, the big debt to history with them.
Now, do you have a website that people can go to see what books you have available?
Yeah, it's called www.centerofknownhistory.com.
Right. We'll put that up on our Facebook page.
Hey, great, thank you.
Yeah. Guys, anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I do. Brian Valou.
Hi.
What got you interested in doing this CWI?
Well, Bill kind of twisted my arm, because he's another one of my resource people, and he's opened the doors to a lot of archival material for me over the years. And actually, we did a really tiny book together, 20 years ago, about the railroads that came through Madison, Illinois. And so we've done this kind of work before, and we see each other at these swap meets, so it was kind of a natural thing to fall in and work together on something. He was a technical man. I mean, you'll notice in this book that there are a lot of photos of locomotives, and he's the one who could tell you. He used to make me laugh, because he'd look at a picture and he could tell by the way the shadows were falling at what time of day that train was coming through, and then he could figure out what the number of the train was, by according to the schedules. So he really did the technical end, and I came up with the editorial, the copywriting, and designing the layout, that kind of stuff, because I had experience doing this type of book before.
We should note that the books are $21.99, which is reasonable.
Yes.
Make great Christmas presents. Yeah.
No, I've got a couple of these books from like San Diego and Arizona Railway and such. Yeah, so I am familiar with it, but this one, the copy that was sitting across from me, I did thumb through, and it looks pretty interesting, so I guess I'm going to have to look you up.
Yes, I think you'd find this interesting. It's a big part. It was a very important part of the development of the southeast side of Chicago and the Illinois side of the Calumet region. And both the Calumet region and the railroad are pretty much gone as they were known in the 20th century. So it's a very important document, and people should be aware of what happened there and how we did business.
That is true.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on your program. I
Yeah, thank
enjoyed
you.
it, just like I did the last time. And,
Well, I hope you can call in again with another book.
I hope so. One of these days. You never know.
All right. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Cynthia.
much.
That's good how that stuff comes about. But you opened the door. We got a lot of things coming up. But I guess we should talk to our gentleman.
Station break.
Oh, we are now taking station identification.
And you are listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Thursday, November the 10th, the year 2016. And now, back to Chicago Junction and our panel. Bri?
Oh, welcome back.
Mr. Brian.
Well, we have a few gentlemen here that are visiting and from time to time, and we are actually have a new panel member. We'd like for him to speak up and talk about his wonderful world of trains that he plays in.
Oh, every day. My name is John Picciotto, and I'm from Lombard Hobbies. Let's see, where should we start? Mr. Doug, my teacher and mentor over there, know that Cato USA was bringing out the Operation North Pole Christmas train for this year. It is Cato USA is a very, very good company. I credit them with revitalizing N-Scale as a business and as a hobby in the last 30 years because they are truly the Cadillac of the hobby when it comes to the detail that they build their equipment to, the running quality. You cannot go wrong with Cato. And this year they signed an agreement with Operation North Pole to actually produce an N-Scale version of the train that Metro runs at Christmas time. And let me give you a little background on the Operation North Pole. It's a volunteer-based public charity. It works with Chicago's major children hospitals and provides a day of fun and fantasy for families having a child battling a life-threatening illness. And what they do is they host a fantasy date trip to the North Pole. Families that have emotional and financial stresses with a child battling, a life-threatening or terminal illness, Operation North Pole makes every effort to ensure that the entire family participates and shares in the day's festivities. It includes breakfast, a train trip to the North Pole, a visit with Santa, Winter Wonderland fun. They have entertainment, treats, personal wish list gifts, and there's a lot more that they do. The goal is to provide the families with an unforgettable experience amidst various challenging times. Now, this first year train that Cato is producing represents the painting and wrapping that the train was was decorated with last year. It has the locomotive 125, which Brian probably ran. It's painted yellow, and it has Operation North Pole on it. The first cab car is sponsored by the city of Rosemont. The second coach is sponsored by the Donald Stevens Exposition Center. And again, the final car, the cab car, is painted for Operation North Pole. It's really a nice train set, and even better, a portion of the sale goes towards Operation North Pole.
Outstanding.
And if you're lucky at some of the train shows, check out the high railers there. There's a couple of high rail groups in O Gauge, and one of them should be running the train.
Mm-hmm.
They got it done. The people who do the final wrap made it for the O Gauge train, so they got a MTH F40, and I happened to come up with 5 bi-level cars for them. And they wrapped that, and they were running it at several of the shows this year.
Really? Got
Hopefully
photos?
it'll be running up at Train Fest.
Speaking of O-gauge cars, Menards is selling O-gauge box cars, tank cars, bunch of flat cars with military. I was surprised. And they look pretty nice.
Menards started selling Lionel train sets about 6 years ago, and then 2 years ago they started doing individual cars. They did a real nice Sioux Line box car that my nephew said he saw and he had to get for me. But this year they've come out with a Canadian Pacific flat with a Canadian rescue copter on it, an Alaska flat with a Black Hawk on it, a series of military cars. I just ordered a Chessie hopper because I have a daughter that's fanatic for anything with the Chessie cat markings on it, and I just ordered a Chesapeake and Ohio flat with a cement mixer on it. Not the drag behind cement mixer, the truck chassis mounted over the road cement mixer. They've got some beautiful stuff, and they just announced a passenger station in their structure series. If you go to menards.com, and then when they ask you what you want, you type in train stuff in the search box, you'll get 8 or 9 pages of possibilities. And they start from like $19.99 and go up from there. The structures are generally either $79.99 or $99.99. Too many nines. My teeth are tripping my tongue. But I mean, whether you want tankers or boxcars or flats, I think they have wood deck flat cars in 7 or 8 different roads. They have a tremendous selection. They even have the old style tubular track if you are a purist and you want the track you had when you were a child.
The other thing about Menards is they just started HO also on their building structures. Some of the building structures that they did in Lionel, they're now downsizing to HO, and including that just came in probably within the last 6 months or so. So, and a lot of times going to my local Menards, which was on North Avenue, they have a lot of the Lionel, but they didn't have any HO. But if you write to them, they said go to the website and type it in, and they could be delivered then to your local store.
Yes, to save you shipping costs.
Yeah. And if you wander into the paint department, they're carrying Tester's paint now.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
In sets.
In the little bottles.
Yep.
Wow.
Put a little.
I may have to start go making model planes
really.
again.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, what's the story? What's the availability of that set and the price?
Well, I'll
And
give
where
you.
can we get it?
Oh, I can tell you where to go.
Please do.
Oh, we know where we'd like to tell you sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you're sitting in the right seat because Jack tells us that all the time.
Yes.
Well, the train set retails at $200, $199.99. At Lombard Hobbies, we have it at $124.99. And it's sold. It is just the locomotive and the two coaches and cab car. But if somebody would like to put the entire train operating underneath the layout, I do have a Cato M1 starter set, and to bundle the starter set and the train together, it'd be $200 plus tax.
Where's your store located?
Lombard Hobbies is located at 524 East St. Charles Place, Lombard, Illinois. If you're familiar railroad-wise where the Chicago Great Western crossed the Chicago Northwestern, I look out at that every day.
Well, nice to have a good landmark.
Oh, yeah. Even better yet, if you want, you could walk down the street, walk into the woods, up onto the path, and walk onto the bridge that now crosses, and watch trains. And when you get cold, come by the store and buy trains.
Do you have a website?
Yes, it is Lombard Hobbies. Now, let me think about this.
LombardHobby.com.
Thank you. I should know. I'm on it every day on the admin side.
Are you anywhere? Are you anywhere near Shamrock Gardens?
Shamrock Gardens.
Is the florist on St. Charles Road?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
If you're familiar with St. Charles Road,
Oh, yes, definitely.
okay, you know where it crosses
Yes.
the Chicago Northwestern, and there's a park right there.
Yes, yes.
That's right where we're located.
Okay, all right. Then you're west of Shamrock Gardens, then.
Okay.
Yeah. I know St. Charles Road very well, from Mannheim all the way out that way.
Excellent.
Yes.
But we've been. The store has been in that location since 1991, and we have about 3,500 square feet of trains, and on the website about 10,000 items that I have to play with every day.
Oh, darn.
Have to play with.
We'll add that
Boxes
link
it-
to our Facebook page too.
Boxes and numbers every day. Primarily it's HO and N scale.
Speaking of which, somebody else is making a jump to HO this year. Did you get the Lionel's Polar Express set
No.
in HO scale?
And not to knock Lionel, it's a beautiful item. It's simply, for my taste, is $500 to accumulate the entire train. And that's a little pricier than the HO market will bear.
Well, what is the basic set?
I believe it's the
I believe it's a locomotive and 3 cars.
And 3 cars. There's an additional baggage car and 2 coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And the basic set is about $300, with the additional coaches being an additional $200. Honestly, something like that, you would be better off going through an authorized Lionel dealer, which we're not. Authorized Lionel dealers, of which I know in the area, are Berwyn Toys and Trains, which is a fantastic shop, and Displays Hobbies.
And Chicagoland.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Greg at Chicago.
Oh, yeah. They still exist.
I don't go into the city much anymore. When I do, I'm working on cars.
Well, that's another reason why to go to Greg's. No, but I was asking because Lionel finally did it, so that way, because I know a lot of the HO modelers were crying for it.
I know, it's a beautiful train set. But
Yeah.
just,
I mean, it took them a while before they finally got it out in S gauge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they can only do it right in G gauge.
Uh-huh.
No, they got a battery-powered one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, Kevin?
Thank you, sir. Last month, I talked briefly about a Merci car that was sent to the United States at the end of or immediately after the end of World War I. 51 cars were produced, one for each of the 48 states, one for Alaska, one for Hawaii, and one for the District of Columbia. And I had actually seen the car up at the Mid-Continent Railway Museum when my kids were younger, and I found out that about 25 years ago, that car, which was the one that was sent to the state of Wisconsin, was shipped over to the National Railway Museum in Green Bay, and it's on display inside a building, but it is what is referred to as a 40-08 car, 40 infantry or 8 cavalry, and it has a blue, white, and red banner that runs diagonally across the car, and has many shields for the different regions and towns attached to the side. And I got mine. It is made by ETS Trains out of Czechoslovakia. Their website is www.etstrain.com. The cost of the car and the shipping via FedEx was $84. It is a it's a tin plate car. It's beautiful. The short box car, two single axles underneath it, similar to a bobber caboose, and it has the European type bumpers at both ends, and the catalog offers the option to buy Lionel type couplers if you should ever want to actually run this on either an 027 or O gauge track. I intend to create a display with it. It's really much too nice to run. You know.
Yeah, we know you're a collector.
Well, it's other than the yellow and the red log cars from my original 1957 Lionel.
They used to do that in real life, you know. Put them on the ground.
Please don't. Other than the two, the red and yellow log car from my original Lionel set, this is the only metal car that I have. So,
Sort of like tin plate, huh?
Very much like tin plate. Matter of fact, I showed the catalog to one of our members who has a couple of tin plate trains, and he started drooling.
Yeah, I've got tin plate from the 30s. I've got about 30 cars.
I think you bought some of them from me when I was back at the other store.
Nope.
No?
No, I actually got them through some from a friend of mine. Most of the locomotives came from him, along with some of the cars, and I've been picking up others at the two-page show.
Mm-hmm. This is really nice.
Ron.
Yes.
Why don't you speak up?
I shall.
Besides goading him. Goading John, coaching him along.
Well, I want to find out more because I haven't visited his hobby shop, and I tend to get around to almost all of them. So I now have one to add to my list. Couple of things that I was going to talk about last month, and I was sick, so I don't know if any of you guys covered it. There was an article, couple of page article, which I thought was sort of interesting in Trains magazine in November about crossing accidents, and Illinois ranks third in this particular yearly report from 2015, and I think we were also third in fatalities as well. We were second in the number of actual injuries and incidents. We were also third. Illinois is quite busy.
Actually, we've gone up in fatalities.
So, and that's important to note because I know we talked about it, I think, 2 months ago, about the safety of railroad crossings, not to go around gates, all that stuff that people tend to ignore and it a lot of times costs them their lives or whatever. And so I thought this was kind of interesting. It does all 50 states and gives you some idea of where the accidents happen. Chicago, of course, is one of the busiest railroad hubs in the nation because we're a center for both the East and West Coast trains. The other thing that I saw, and it was and I didn't realize it moved out of the Museum of Science of Industry. There used to be a steam locomotive called the Mississippi.
Yeah, we did talk about that last month, didn't we, Doug?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, based on this article, it evidently is the longest or the oldest parallel
horizontal
boiler. So, at the time, I got to admit, as a little kid, I was more interested in the 99 and the bigger, more typical-looking steam engines, and this I thought was kind of weird-looking. But then seeing the article and reading more about it, and unfortunately now I think it's going to be down in
well, the majority of the time it was
Knoxville.
Well, the whole time it was on display in the science industry.
Yeah.
It was looked at as being a British locomotive, and it was an American-built locomotive.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting because you would think that the museum would have historical basis on the material that they would get and be able to research it, but it wasn't researched until Knoxville ended up getting it, and then they took it apart. And they wanted to run it, but I think they decided because of the boiler and the work that that wouldn't be possible. But that was kind of another good article that was in Train Magazine. So
Yeah, it is a very good article.
Where did that locomotive cab end up too? They had that. I think it was a Pensy locomotive. Steam
Yeah, it was a
locomotive?
Pensy cab. Well, listen, until that article came out, I didn't know where the Mississippi. Nobody'd say anything. And but the cab ended up going to a museum in California
oh,
and being used out there.
Good place for a Pennsylvania locomotive cab, California.
yeah.
They had a lot of trains running out there way back then.
Hey, well, they made a lot of locomotives and they were able to sell them off. They had a used car lot going there in Altoona. Used locomotives. And then, but speaking of which, we are having a lot of things coming up. Oh, we were talking Train Fest is coming up this weekend. Train Fest up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the fairgrounds. It is the second largest train show in the United States, just behind York. And it's so large they actually put it in a second building now. All the overflow is going in there, and it'll be on Saturday and Sunday. I know because the club I'm with, they'll be setting up in the second building. But it'll give us a chance. We put up our big layout.
Cool.
It will be, what 55 by 60 feet
Wow.
for large scale. We also have a lot of things starting up before Thanksgiving. Small list of the holiday trains are starting. They do not have the list yet out for the CTA train. I looked again just before I came. It'll probably be next week they'll put the CTA Santa train out. But starting like with the Chicago Botanic Gardens, they're putting together the Wonderland Express. And that'll be opening up on Friday the 25th. Day after Thanksgiving. Black Friday. I know where I'm going to be.
It's a much better option than trying to shop.
Yes.
In the basement playing with the trains.
Yep.
I know where I'm going to be too, selling trains.
Yep. And then,
God love
actually,
you, sir.
the weekend before, at Hawthorne Gardens, garden shop in Hawthorne Woods. And from the 19th to the 27th, Midwest Rails will have a layout set up in there. And you'll be able to meet and greet with the Jolly Red Elf. And that'll be on the 19th and 20th. And if people want to go, they could just go to www.hawthorngardens.com. And if they want to get the times and prices for the Botanic Garden, they can go www.chicagobotanic.org. The LGB Club of Chicago, with their large scale, will be setting up again at the Brookfield Zoo and for their holiday magic. And they'll be operating starting December 3rd, 4th, 10th and 11th, 17th and 18th, the 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st. And that's usually a fun time. And they go from 4 to 8 p.m.
Well, don't forget that November is National Model Railroad Month. And
Of course.
And the various model railroads in the area.
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of clubs that are going to be opening up open houses. In New Lenox, the Chicagoland Lionel Club will be holding. They've been busy since the summer, rebuilding their layout there, and they're going to have open house on the 3rd and 10th of December, and they'll be able to meet the Jolly Red Elf there, and they're allowed to bring cameras and take pictures, and so that way you don't have to sneak it like you're being a spy and taking away any good plans. from the track layout.
The club is already dressed in full Christmas splendor, and they called me Wednesday of last week and asked me to put up a Christmas town as an afterthought. So that will be up near one of the Christmas trees, and there is a dedicated Polar Express running around one of the other Christmas trees, and it's $3 a person, $8 a family, even if you bring Grandma and Grandpa with. So come out and see us, please, because the chief engineer of the North Pole and Snowflake will be there on the tail plate of the caboose in his big leather chair for photographs.
And then you've got, if you want to find out more information, www.clrctrains.com. Let's see. We got train rides. Oh, lots of train rides going to be happening. For those who might enjoy, about an hour and a half ride from here is Waterman, Indiana, and the Waterman and Western Railroad. They'll be running their holiday lights trains. Come see over 250,000 lights and figures. There'll be free popcorn and hot chocolate. It's one of the amusement park 15-inch gauge train. And it will start operating Saturday the 26th of November. And all weekends from 5 to 9, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Santa will start meeting them on the first Friday in December. And you can go to www.peachtrains.com. And if you've been to DuPage, they have a vendor there that sells fudge.
Oh, yes.
And they make it at Waterman's. And, that is good.
When I've been to assist a friend of mine with working at DuPage, the only thing I go for to purchase is the fudge.
And you happen to set the fudge up right out where XL Lubricants is being sold. And that's where I'm usually at the table, and she knows me. She's already got a box waiting for me.
What was that, X-Lax Lubricants?
Be nice, gentlemen.
Okay, the Polar Express will be departing in South Elgin. Fox River Trolley Museum on November 20th, 26th, and 27th. And then December 3rd, 4th, 10th, 11th, 17th, and 18th, with departures at 3:15, 4:25, 5:35, 6:45, and 7:35. And they'll transfer you to the North Pole, where Santa will be sitting. Tickets can be purchased online at www.foxtrolley.org. Illinois Railway Museum is running their Happy Holiday Railway with a 40-minute train ride through the countryside with Santa. The treats are served. Gifts will be given to kids on the good list. And days for the event will be November 26th, 27th, December 3rd, 4th, 10th, 11th, 17th, and 18th. The trains ride hourly from 2 to 7 p.m. Sunday trips will be hourly from 1 to 7 p.m. Tickets are $18 a head. Can be purchased online at www.irm.org.
Now, do the bad kids get the coal that falls off the BNSF
Trains.
hoppers in Washington?
Yep. So that way you can put them in the locomotive you're going to get for Christmas.
Jeez.
And then we go to Indiana.
I always get coal for Christmas.
See, they were keep telling me that when I was a kid, and I'm going, geez, I'm going to get a train. I'm going to get a train. Over in Indiana, up north of LaPorte, we got the Heston Steam Museum. On the first 2 weekends in December, they will be operating the Candy Cane Express. The ride the train is $5 for adults, $3 for kids. If you bring an unwrapped toy for a donation for Toys for Tots, you get to ride for free. Santa arrives at noon and can be visited in his magical caboose. For more information, go to www.hestonorg.org. Let's see what we got here. East Troy. This town of East Troy, Wisconsin. Will be the East Troy Electric Railroad. Christmas trains will be running November 26th, 27th, December 3rd, 4th, 10th, 11th, 17th, and 18th, departing at 9, 10, 11 a.m., noon, 1 and 2 p.m. They depart from the East Troy Depot. Your destination is Santa's Workshop, which will be in the Elegant Farmer at the other end of the line. And you can visit the Jolly Old Elf there. Tickets can be purchased either online or at the depot. For more information, go to www.easttroyrr.org. On December 3rd, it's going to be a little bit different in East Troy. That's when the Santa train runs. Santa comes into town from the Elegant Farmer to East Troy for the tree lighting ceremony and carol singing. They have a stand set up for the people. They can make ornaments and they can put them up on the tree. You get hot chocolate, good cookies. Yeah, cookies. See? And it's all be in the town square. It's actually quite good. Actually, only 50 tickets are for sale for the ride on the train. And you have to call the Chambers of Commerce of either East Troy or Muckawanaga. M-U-K.
McQuanago.
Yeah, McWango.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, McWanago. Okay. Chamber of Commerce. And you can get them on their websites. And last but not least will be the CP Holiday Train. Canadian Pacific has been running a holiday train a lot of years, and they collect food stuff for food shelters in both the U.S. and in Canada. Last year was the first year they started running in daylight.
The chief engineer's getting calls.
And running in daylight. And
the dispatcher, we're running late.
Yeah. with sun still up. So it doesn't look as good as it does at night. You can go on the website and bring it up, and it just... Well, what it is, they're going to leave on December 5th from Chicago. First stop will be Gurnee. They'll get there at approximately 3:50. And they'll start their show, because they have a boxcar that opens up like a Lionel boxcar. The side comes down, and they'll set up a stage on it, and got acts playing. And then...
Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland?
Yep. With the wings. And then they'll about 3:30 they'll finish up. They'll close everything up, and the train will take off. The next stop after that will be Sturtevant. And they'll get there then at that time about 5:35, and it should be dark enough where the lights, because all the cars have Christmas lights decked on them, with about 4 passenger cars in the back to carry the crew and everything. In fact, the locomotive is all decked out with lights, including a light tree on the cab. And it's very, very, actually something really nice to see. At least go online and check it out. They got some nice stuff running across through the woods and by the river with reflections. You know, this is just a small sample of what's happening. We've got a lot of the stores that are going to be setting up displays. John Hancock has a wonderful one down below. The conservatory and a lot of other stores, and you know, and this is just a small sampling. There's also a website you can go to for Santa in Chicago, and then put / Santa on train, and you come up with 30 pages.
Good Lord.
Of stuff of the communities that are all participating with Metra and running storytelling trains and everything.
We'll include the link to that
Yes.
site on Facebook, but not the 30 pages.
No, you print out the 30 pages on yourself.
No, I'm not going to.
If you happen to be traveling to spend time with your family and you're in or near St. Louis, the Transportation Museum of St. Louis moves the vehicles out of their lobby and puts in a big Christmas train layout. And it'll be up, should be up from shortly after Thanksgiving until January, and then in January they have a big railroad swap meet in there. But that's Transportation Museum of St. Louis if you happen to find yourself down there.
Well, it looks like we're coming to a close of another fine evening.
We're approaching the bumping post.
Yes, we
Set
are.
the brakes.
Journey is coming to an end.
Set the brakes.
Is that
Then
what
we
those
go-
red signal lights mean?
Then we go up the escalator and stop.
Oh, we're going
That's
to
a
the airport.
CTA. That's a CTA.
We're going to the airport. Okay.
Ryan, that'll do when you get him stopped.
That'll do. That'll do. So, from the whole crew, wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and a pleasant evening, and as John would say, happy rails to you.
We miss John.
Yes, we do. We miss you, John. As our express comes into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be listened to on the web at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all our past episodes, and also sample some of the other programs that are being offered. This is your announcer, Brian Valou. Till next month, when we journey to Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Thursday, November the 10th, the year 2016. Chicago Junction is generally produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chiconda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, November the 9th, the year 2016. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack Frost FM, 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois, a Ridgewood Community High School radio station.